What's up, everybody? Tyrone E. Wilson here. Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays. Today is August 23rd. I'm here with my really great friend and godfather of my daughter, Mr. John Robinson. Great guy. You all should know him. We actually did a discussion. What was it, last year? About
Yeah,
it was,
I think it was
I
last
think
year.
it was a similar topic. If you don't know, there is a playlist, a MMHJ, My Mental Health Journey playlist. Rob is a big part of that playlist. One of my very first interviews. Um, Last week we did a really good session on mental health with a focus on empowering the youth. And by youth, I mean from high school through, I'd say about early 20s. In that age, we understand that, the youth, they're kind of going through some things. And we did
Mhm.
our best to try to address what we could, starting from the beginning of the issues. We talked about some things that have affected us as children. And of course, we always end it on a positive note with some resources and some things that they can do to identify some of their, I don't want to call them issues, but identify some of the things that may affect them, along with um, providing tools and techniques that we have personally used to have helped us. Today is the first of a three-part series. It's going to be really good. So we're going to have 3 straight weeks of this discussion of generational wealth. And I know it probably plagues a lot of people, but we're going to talk about the mental health aspect of it all. We're going to do our best to break it down as best we could, like we always do, and give some resources towards the end. Like I said, it's going to be 3 parts. So we're going to do this for 2 straight weeks after this. And then in week 4, we might start another series, and it's going to be called Conquering Mommy Issues. So
Ooh.
I have quite a few people already lined up. It's going to get deep, and I think it's going to be good. Hopefully, it'll be able to help a lot of men, and we'll see if we could do it on the other side as well. Have some women up, and we have a Conquering Daddy Issues uh, series. All right, so John, a lot of people know who I am. Tell the people who you are, give them a quick rundown, who you are, what you do, and how they can find you.
Great. Well, first of all, thanks, Ty, for bringing me on. Anytime that you need me, I'm always there. For those that may not know me, so John Robinson, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, a bit about my background. So, I am a cybersecurity professional. Ty and I have known each other for probably a little over 20 years now. We have gone through it all, not only professionally but also personally, right? And we've I think that one of the biggest things about our relationship is that we are constantly looking at ways in which to better each other and sharing these types of thoughts in these types of forums. I think is so critical, especially for people that are not only experiencing similar situations, but also may kind of struggle and not necessarily know where to go to get that outlet. And beyond cybersecurity, I'm an avid traveler. I'm a father. I'm a brother. I'm a husband. And wow, married now for going on 7 years. I've been with my wife for going on 11 years. And so you can imagine this particular topic is very near and dear to my heart because of the fact that generational wealth starts with me. I have I've had to go through a lot of the trials and tribulations of figuring things out, asking a lot of questions, emulating folks that kind of resemble the output that I'm looking to achieve, as well as making sure that I can go through the paces of this process without putting too much pressure on myself. So I'm confident that we're going to get into some really great questions and touch on some really impactful things. But ultimately, the long and short of it is, I too am the start of the generational wealth that I envision and that I see for myself and my family. And yeah, it's been quite a journey so far. You're on mute, Ty.
No, I was saying we got some folks in the waiting room. I do not see them at all. Do you see anyone? Because
I don't.
I definitely don't. Kiki,
No.
try that link one more time. We'd love to have you up. John, you have mentioned some things that was going to lead to some of my initial questions, and it was about when did it all begin for you, where you felt the need to create this generational wealth, and then um, we'll also touch on the topic of resources that you had or did not have.
Yeah. So the first question in terms of what kind of brought me to that point. Well, coming from humble beginnings in a single parent household, I knew what it was like to have and not to have. I knew what it was like to have personally felt the pressures of not wanting to add already what seemed like insurmountable pressure on my mother. Wanted to try to figure out ways in which to create a less stressful environment for her by trying to find out or figure out ways that I can make my own money. Um, it was it was very crucial and critical to me because my mom, she sacrificed continuously. And when you get to a point to where you have all these goals and aspirations and dreams, but you're not exactly sure how it's going to come to fruition, especially as a young kid, it's one of those things where you say to yourself, well, what can I do that is going to yield the fastest return on investment in terms of my time and my commitment? So my mom used to always tell me, I'll buy you what you need, you buy what you want. And here it is, you know, uh, over 40 years later, and I still hear that in my mind. I'll buy you what you need, you buy what you want. But my mom always told me, in order for you to buy what you want, you need to make sure that how you're getting that money is morally and ethically correct. So she placed a standard that she allowed me to try to figure out what that meant. But at the same time, I knew that it had to be on the right side of the law, right? And so I worked probably since I was 14 or 15 in an official, W-2 capacity. But even prior to that, I was in the neighborhood hustling, walking dogs, washing cars, cutting grass, doing whatever I could to make money. And I always knew that it wasn't going to be this way forever. And so that was the initial point when I was probably 12 or 13 years old, when I knew that something had to be different and that I was going to be that change.
Excellent points. I'm going to tell my story really quick, but before that, I want to introduce to everyone Brandon, Kalila, and McKenna. If you guys can go around and tell the crowd just who you are really quick and how they can find you. And then we're going to ask you all that question. Go ahead, Brandon.
All right, what's up? I'm Brandon. Can you hear me, Ty? With my headset, can you hear me? All right, yep. I'm Brandon Robinson. I'm an author and I'm a sales engineer. So I work in cybersecurity. You can find me basically on everything the words won't form, whether it's IG. I think I'm just beating around on Twitter. I didn't do that, but yeah, that's me.
Kalila?
So I'm Kalila Scott. Most people in cybersecurity call me Kiki. I am a mom of two, and also a fur mom of one, a golden retriever named Sora. And yeah, I've worked in cybersecurity. I met Tyrone in cybersecurity, and most of the people on this call in cybersecurity, which is exciting. Uh, but yeah, I my position right now is cybersecurity risk governance specialist, and it's nice to meet everyone. I'm going to thoroughly introduce a really good friend of mine who I met while I was going through the Share the Mic in Cyber campaign, and also a couple of other um campaigns that I was affiliated with. But McKenna Yankee is one of my best friends. We met through cybersecurity. We met literally on a chat or a YouTube call just like this. And we've been really good friends for the past couple of years. And she's become one of my really big friends over the past few years. So McKenna, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself.
Thank you. Wow, that was amazing. Thanks, Kiki. Yeah. So, like Kiki said, my name is McKenna Yankee. I am a senior security engineer at Samsara, where I oversee email and corporate SaaS security. I've been in the game for 2.5 years, but prior to that, I came up through old school like sysadmin route. So I've been in tech for 6 going on 7 years now. Still, a baby security engineer, but I'm getting there. And yeah, outside of security, I do a lot of volunteer work for the Women's Society of Cyber Jitsu. I think everybody here is probably pretty familiar with Mary Galloway, who's been a big supporter of mine and mentor of mine, and has given me the opportunity to do a lot for giving back to the community and helping to support other women in their journey in cybersecurity. So I dedicate a lot of my time to that and to mentorship. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Thank you all so much for providing that input on yourselves. You may have missed the previous question, but we're here talking about the pressures of creating generational wealth. And the very first question was, I like to do things by taking it all the way back, trying to get that mental mindset of how it started, maybe when it started for you, where you actually realize that, like Rob said earlier, things need to change, right? Things need to be different. I'll start with me really quick. I remember being, uh, my very first year in Massachusetts. I believe I was probably like third or fourth grade. I did distinctly remember, I don't want to say we were poor, because I always say that the greatest trick my parents ever did was not letting us know how poor we really were. We didn't have it all, but we had what we needed. But, my pride was starting to kick in, my ego was starting to kick in. I was the oldest. So there are things that I feel differently than my younger brother and sister. And, I distinctly remember not having the things that all of my other friends did. I remember, being hungry. I remember all of the things that are associated with, you know, folks that have it rough. And, we're scraping, dinners together from the leftovers and the scraps, and making meals out of that. And, there were some moments where I felt they were very embarrassing to me, like collecting cans. And when it's time to turn in those cans, we actually have to walk those bags of cans attached to the shopping cart, because they're not going to all fit in the car. And I hated it, and I kind of vowed to not live like that. But as a kid, you're very limited at what you can do. And because of that feeling, I felt like I never ever, ever want to go back there. I never ever want to, feel that ever again. But, you know, there wasn't anyone that I could call on. Like I can't have, you know, financial discussions with my father or with my parents because, you know, they never bought a home. They barely even got past high school. My father to this day still doesn't like the stock market or anything like that. So, you know, I didn't really have much, and I wanted to be, you know, the conduit for my family for a lot of those things to change. But then I also realized that there's a lot of pressures that come with that. There's a lot of other emotions that come with that. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Kalila, let's hear your story real quick.
Yeah, so one of my big things was from the start, um, we were living in a 2 bedroom house, 2.5 bedroom house, and it was 8 of us at one point in time. And it was very difficult because of the fact that, you know, we had younger children there, and I was tasked with helping to raise those younger children. So that was one thing. Um, Getting older, like I didn't go back to college until I was 39 years old. Graduated when I was 42, and now I'm 43. And you know, again, it was almost like soon as my family felt like I had made it, like I was the first one in my immediate family to make 6 figures out the gate. And their immediate, like it was like almost automatic that they were like, oh well, we need you to pay for this for grandma, we need you to pay for this for your brother, we need you to do this. And then, you know, that also includes like your kids, you know what I mean? Like it just, family just started bringing on these, how about you do this, how about you help with that. And I just remember, I can remember a situation where I was homeless at one point in time with me and my 2 kids. And we had to live in a live-in motel. And nobody was helping us. And you know, and not to say because nobody helped us then, I can't help people now and I can't help my family now. But it's important to remember that I worked hard to get to where I am, to have a comfortable life. Um, and they didn't help us. You know what I mean? Like it is a little bit of resentment behind it. Like I try to not focus on the resentment, but it's a real thing for me sometimes. And so I try to help it as much as I can. For me is you have to put yourself first. You have to make sure that you are okay with where you are before you start helping everybody else. I didn't even get that opportunity. They just started flooding me with the do this, help us. We need help with this. And it was like almost because I had gotten successful in their eyes, um, it was like an automatic ATM for them. And that's rough. Like I want to pull people along with me. However, it's really hard and it's really difficult when you are like when you become successful, you become like the cash cow or the ATM of the family. That's been my struggle thus far.
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that. I definitely want to bring up things like being the family rep, you know, disclosing some of that information, what that feels like, what it may feel like to say you don't have it and maybe lose that. So we're going to get into that. But McKenna, Let's hear your story real quick.
Yeah. So I am the oldest girl of 9 kids, you know. 6 brothers, 3 sisters. And you know, I come from a mixed background. I'm Puerto Rican and Black, and so if anybody's, you know, familiar with Hispanic households, the oldest girl is pretty much the secondary mom, you know. We didn't grow up with much. Obviously, when you're spread out across that many kids and trying to take care of everybody, you know, and you have a family where no one's ever graduated college, no one has really a career. The best that you can maybe squeeze out is to go be a state gov worker. You know, I'm from Oklahoma originally, and so there was not a lot of opportunities for me growing up. I was a lot of the times the only girl of color in my classes, you know, and coming from a family where you don't come from the most successful background, you don't come from a family that has a lot to give. You know, we were by no means like as not well to do as a lot of people that I've met and built friendships and relationships with, but we were by no means comfortable either. We were literally on by a thread, right? It was one of those like living paycheck to paycheck and anything would send our family over. And there was quite a few times that, you know, stuff did. And that caused a giant, you know, just rift in my family. So I didn't have a very stable upbringing either. I remember for me watching my brothers who were older than me trying to get out on their own as young Black men and struggling and having to deal with, you know, drug addictions or going to jail or, you know, just the difficulties of being a young Black man in Oklahoma. And then a lot of that weight falling to me as I was watching my brothers kind of drop off and realizing I'm going to have to be the one to take care of my family. I'm going to have to be the one to step up, which I had been at first, but it was a lot of the very, you know, stereotypical, like cook, clean, take care of the babies, you know, in your family, kind of be the second mom. But then I realized, oh, I'm going to have to like financially take care of my family. And that was really hard because I didn't have a strong relationship with my mother. My father passed away when I was extremely young. And so, you know, I remember sending money to my mom so that my sisters could eat and have clothes while I was living in my car, you know, just so that they could have a roof over their head. So I think for me, the feeling was realizing that there was never going to be anybody to come take care of me. And that if I didn't want my little sisters or my little brother living the same way I was, which, you know, living in my car, working, you know, 2-3 jobs at a time, doing manual labor, like I was going to have to do something different because I didn't want that for them. I would rather deal with it than they did. And I didn't want them to worry either. So that was like the big like feeling that kind of got me going, right? I didn't see anybody else in my family succeeding. I didn't see anybody else in my family stepping up, doing what they need to do. It was always quarreling or, you know, somebody having an excuse for why they couldn't step up and do better for everybody. And so I think like really for me, I realized I was going to have to be that in my family. Yeah. So I think that's kind of like where everything started in this like idea of like, I have to hustle if I want better for them.
McKenna, you touched on some good points that I definitely want to dig into. You know, the pressures of being the oldest. You know, why do you feel compelled to not also be one of the people who just say, I just don't have it? You know, you mentioned other people making excuses. You know, what is, you know, in us, you know, that is not allowing us to make the same excuse? You know, so what those that's something I definitely want to get into. I'm making sure I got my notes down. Brandon, really quick.
Yeah. Okay. You unmuted me. I was on mute. Cool. So, yeah. So actually, I grew up with my parents. I never knew, like, as a kid, you don't know. Like, I mean, we weren't poor, right? Like, we had enough. I think we were kind of like an average black family, and you don't really know anything different until you get older. Or at least I didn't, right? Like I thought I was good. I'm like, until you start going over a friend's house and you just start noticing a little difference and you're like, oh, okay, they got a little more than me. Dang, they got, it's a little different over here than it is,
They got
at my
Kool-Aid.
house. Yeah, they got the good Kool-Aid.
Real Kool-Aid.
They got Rice Krispie. We ain't got crispy rice. But I mean, we had Rice Krispies. So I really, honestly, like my parents, like I always knew, like when I was coming up, I never had like a poverty mentality. I always knew I would have money. Like even when I was younger, like if my mom was sitting next to me, she would tell you like my dad and my brother were both great with their hands, and I sucked at it, right? Like I just didn't, I don't have that. So like they'd be putting stuff together, working on cars, and I just be like, nah, I'm gonna pay somebody. And I was a kid. Like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna pay somebody. And I always said that. And so I always kind of knew like that I was gonna do well. Like I always kind of just had the mindset that I would do well. Right. And then eventually, it clicked as I got older. I got into tech and but I was always smart. I got into, good, I had good grades. And once I got older, I got into tech, and I did grind because my even though we weren't poor, like it still was tight, and I kind of knew that like, hey, there were things that I wanted, like we had one pair of shoes a year, I wanted kind of like two or three, but so I knew like there were things I was gonna have to work for, but I never made my parents feel bad. I just knew that when it was my time to get older, that I was gonna put in the work to do what I needed to do. So that's kind of like what happened for me, and I just put in the work and did what I needed to do. And much like everybody else, I knew that as a man, it was on me to take care of myself. Like, and that's just like what men do, right? Like my dad always taught me, you get to a certain age as a man, you provide for the house, you make sure your kids are good, you take care of your wife, you pay the bills. So I knew that at some point I was going to transition into manhood. It would be my responsibility to provide.
Good points, Brandon. Obviously, like our past has shaped us, right? And it seems like we have different levels and different reasons to be motivated to create this generational wealth for our families. I can tell you, myself, like I definitely remember. I also remember being confident that I would be okay. But I can tell you some of the things that I struggle with. I want to know if you all struggle with it too. So my family, it seems like they have gotten to a point to where they get comfortable asking, or, we just kind of move like Ty got it, and in a way that is a huge sense of accomplishment for myself. But I also feel like there's some pressures there for me to always have it, out of fear of losing that confidence or losing that feeling that I get, because I remember, them not asking me, even if it was like $5, $10, they'd be like, Ty ain't got it. I'm not even gonna ask him. So I wanted to ask you all, like, how do you handle, those pressures of being the one, since you've kind of anointed, it's like we've anointed ourselves as the flag bearers for the family, but that kind of also means that we can't fall off, or at least we can't let them know that we're falling off, or, we're having some bad moments, or, you might need a loan, or you might need something, but how do you all handle, that pressure of being the one, and managing how you're going to respond to all of these multiple requests, and actions from family? Go ahead, Rob.
Oh man, I can answer that in two parts. The first part is as I started to achieve a certain level of success in my career, and for me, I didn't have the pressures of having to provide for siblings or anything like that. So to me, much like Brandon, I knew that whenever it was my time, I was gonna be at a certain level of success because I just, coming from my dad, I knew I had that dog in me, right? But whenever I started to learn more about people and their habits, all of those unsolicited requests for money here and there, can you do me a favor, and all of this, I'll get you back, and then people start ducking and dodging, that's when I had to learn the importance of boundaries, right? And so, and Ty, you've known me for a very long time. You know my boundaries, right? You know how I am about, I'm one of those types of people where I'm very direct, right? I'm firm, but I'm fair. And if somebody needs me, I will always be there. But just because people want me, I'm very selective about how I allocate my resources, because the second part to this answer is I'm now a husband. I'm now a father of 3. And the more that I'm taking away from this house in order to give to everybody else, I have to make sure that I'm able to make that back at least 3 times, to make sure that I'm not going into a deficit, because there are expectations on me as a father, as a son, as a husband, that I have to maintain a standard in which the level of comfort that we started at, if we find ourselves in a situation because my wife has entrusted me and put all her faith in me that I'm going to be the one to be the provider, I'm going to be that stabilization, I got to come with a damn good reason for why I have I've not upheld my standard that I set. So it took time, and it was through a series of situations where I had to learn. I mean, the people that were closest to me were the ones that let me down, and it hurt bad. It cut me deep, because these are people that I've known most, if not all, of my life, and they were the ones that let me down. And there was one time when it was just me, and I was not smart with my money, and I was also uneducated when it came to me getting my first place. Moved into this apartment. I thought that the deposit was going to go towards my first month's rent. Nobody told me, no, that's just a deposit, dog. You still owe that full month's rent 2 weeks later when I moved in. I come back home, I got a 5-day pay or quit notice on the door. And I go to the office and I'm like, I just moved in 2 weeks ago. What's this? She said, oh no, baby. She said, that was just for you to get your keys. It's the first of the month. We need that full month's rent. And so now the people that I had hooked up, hey, can you loan me this, loan me that? They weren't there for me. And it was a friend of mine, Anna. I said, look, and I was in the Army, wasn't making very much. I was a E3 in the Army. And I said, Anna, look, I said, I just need to borrow some money to get me through the next 2 weeks. And she said, how much do you need? I said, I just need about $100, because I was thinking I'm gonna live on oodles and noodles, hot dogs, water. I'm good. And she gave me $250. And And it dawned on me. I said, wow, she's not even family, but she was willing to give me more than what the people that were closest to me were able to do and willing to do. And she said, you don't have to pay me back, just pay it forward. And so that is what was kind of like that turning point for me, was when I said, okay, in order for me to never find myself in a situation like this, one, I have to educate myself on the proper management of finances. And two, I have to establish and maintain boundaries so that I will never find myself in a situation like I was.
Oh, wow. Anyone else want to touch on that?
Oh, I definitely want to touch on it.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna take everybody a little bit backwards. For me, I started as a teen mom, and so my journey was a lot different than people that had kids later on in life. And so for me, like, I moved out of the house at 17 years old. Like, I knew what it looked like to pay rent and pay bills and cook food and make sure you had everything. It was a different concept for me coming up, because I knew what that looked like right off the bat, coming from the background that I had, where a lot of us within that house where we were living, where it was 8 people living, it was a single mom household. My grandfather, like I say, he used to live there. He paid the house off, gave it to my grandmother when they got divorced, but at the same time, he wasn't there afterwards to kind of be in the mix of raising us. He kind of went off, did his thing, and I got to spend time with him. But it was a different kind of lifestyle. Like, I was out the house at 17. Let that sink in. With 2 kids at 17, I moved literally hundreds of miles away from my family. Um, and again, we have to literally be mindful of the fact that all of our situations are different. And that put me in the position because they felt like I was strong and I could handle things. I got tasked going forward with helping everybody else, providing for everybody else, babysitting for some of my mom's kids when she had more kids, my aunt when she had kids. Like, like all of that was placed on shoulders while I'm working, while I'm not even 21 years old, and I'm watching multiple kids, plus helping them with their bills, helping with my bills, and doing my own thing. Like, it was a whole different situation that I grew up in. Like, it was an entirely different situation. And the funny thing is, like, a lot of people looked at me, and because I was a teen mom, I was always looked down upon. Like, everybody in my family, like from, my mom's side, my grandfather's side, my dad's side, like, everybody looked down on us in the sense of, me and my kids would never make it into any, like, we would never amount to anything. Um, which was crazy because we were the ones they were solely dependent on when they needed help. Um, but at the same time, like, fast forward, now here we are. My youngest daughter graduated college from Purdue. A year and a half, 2 years later, I graduated from Purdue. And then now I have a daughter that's in college now trying to get her degree. You know, it, like, once they saw us starting to come up and us getting to a certain position, it became this thing where even like my daughter, my youngest daughter who graduated from Purdue, her family will literally They will literally reach out and ask her for money. And they're like, oh, our stuff is in the pawn shop. Can you help us? It's going to get sold tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, it's just random stuff that they ask her for that I can relate to, because I've been the person in my family that has always been the go-to person going forward. And it's really rough when you come from nothing, and then to see somebody in your family amount to something. It's like an automatic, they have to help us, automatic. The family feels like we owe them something. And that's the hardest part for me, because I had the toughest time with saying no and setting those boundaries, and just being able to say, it's not that I don't have it. Sometimes some of those people within your family don't deserve it. Sometimes, even if you have it, that doesn't mean you need to give it. So I had to create these boundaries around myself and around my success, just in the like I don't know how to explain it, but it's you really have to set certain boundaries for your mental health. And
Yeah,
the
like
reason
protecting.
I'm saying it because I'm literally going through that right now. Like, I'm literally going through that with a younger sibling of mine, a couple of other family members, and it still bothers me to say no to them sometimes. Like, I'm trying to draw that line and trying to draw those boundaries, but I know what it looks like to struggle.
Hey, Kiki.
That feel like keeps pulling me back in.
Hey, you made me think about some jokes me and my cousin have. Like, we'll get a text message that'll be like, "Hey, cuz," and you already know, you already know what's coming next. You'd be like, "How
You
much you
already
need?
know. Right.
What you
Look,
want?"
you ain't even got to
You
give me the
know,
story no more. Like, I'm at the point where the story
right,
does not matter. You
right. You
could
just want,
literally just be like, I need $25 and I'm gonna send it. And I'm gonna be like, all right, have a
right,
great one.
right. And then, like, you look in the Cash App and you see their history in the Cash App, you already done sent them like 6, 7 um deposits
Look,
already.
I took Cash App off of my phone. Do you hear me? I have literally taken it off of my phone because I
Hmm.
can't. The
Right.
random requests, like, it's
Hmm.
absolutely outrageous to just request money
Hmm.
from somebody. Like, we
Hmm.
don't got lives, bills, expenses, whatever. Like, it's
Hmm.
outrageous. And
Hmm.
again, like, I'm slowly getting my boundaries together with a
Hmm.
lot of this stuff, but it can be difficult because I know what it looks like to be broke, or to
Hmm.
struggle, or to go through the struggle.
Hmm.
But I can't let that dictate me doing what's best for me mentally.
Yeah, it's like protecting your peace, protecting yourself. I I want to plug
Yep.
this motivational
Oh,
talk by one of my favorite motivational speakers, Eric Thomas. It's called Charge. And basically the premise of it is, you can't cut the lights on without the electric company charging you. So no matter who it is, family, friends, or whoever, if they're taking away from your family, your time, your energy, then you need to charge them, you know? And he ends it like, stop giving it away, stop giving it away. I have a question for McKenna, but then after this question, if you want to touch on this previous question, just let me know. Um, and it's for the group as well, because the question I want to ask is it's about guilt. You know, um, we get to a point, we worked hard, we got it. You know what I mean? We know that we're doing better than some family. Um, do y'all have any like guilt, or do you feel yourself purposely acting different when you go back around family that may not have it?
I'm just
Okay.
gonna say real quick
Oh,
that
go ahead. Go ahead.
that was gonna be my point. I'm gonna wait for her to finish, but I was gonna jump in to address that. But
Okay,
I got
cool,
a
cool,
whole
cool.
thing for y'all.
Yeah, well, I'll keep it quick because yeah, I think so. I mean, guilt is one thing that I still really struggle with my family. Uh, you know, it's really hard sometimes to know that I worked really hard to be where I'm at, and I'm extremely comfortable, more comfortable than I ever imagined I could be. Comfortable enough to take care of my family in ways that I could never dream of taking care of my family. But I also see how some of them still struggle. And I think I want to do what I always do, which is come in and save everyone. And I feel the guilt when I set those boundaries, right? Because I think John was talking about those boundaries that you have to set with yourself. And boundaries are not for other people, right? They're for you. You need to set your own personal boundaries. So I think for me, and a good example is like my sister. I've my sister who's closest to me in age. I put her through LPN school. I'm putting her, I helped put her through RN. I'm putting her through her bachelor's and her master's right now, so that she can get to a point where she's also equally comfortable, right? But it's been really hard knowing that she's a nurse, and she's had to go through COVID, being a nurse, um, listening to the things that she's had to struggle with. Her husband is in the military, or was in the military. He's been medically discharged now, but all the things that they went through, all the sacrifices they had to make when they had to leave their home, and when she had to go to nursing school, that she would make 2-hour drives just one way to go to nursing school in the mountains of Montana, because that's where they had sent her up to. And I would listen to her on the phone crying, being so upset about how difficult her life was. And here I am, I'm working remote, warm, comfortable at my home. Me and both my husband work from home, and it was really hard not wanting to try and jump in and save her at every turn that she had that experience, or she was having a rough time, or money wasn't always there, or hey, she didn't have gas to get to class that day, and she's got to make a 2-hour drive back. So I think for me, the guilt is still something that I have not yet worked through. And I think it's going to be something that's a lifelong thing that I have to work through, because I know there's plenty of members in my family that I want to help, but I can no longer help, because they don't want to help themselves. Right. And that's the hard part for me. My mother's a perfect example. I had been no contact with my mother for 7 years. And that also meant that I couldn't be in contact with my two youngest sisters. And during COVID, things got rough. She reached out to me, and they were living paycheck to paycheck. And I did what I normally do. I jumped into save mode, right? Paid every bill, paid for Christmas, was trying to put her through school, trying to just do things to make her life easier, paid the rent, paid the light bill, on top of everybody else that I was helping. And it finally got to a point where, I realized why I've been no contact with her for so many years, where I had to make that decision. Do I save myself and my sanity and my mental health of being around, of not being around somebody? Or do I keep kind of putting up with it so I can still feel like I'm doing something for my family? And that was a really hard one. That was just last year for me, because again, I lost contact with my sisters due to it. But I was so much like, I finally had to set that boundary with myself, and that guilt ate me up for months, and went to therapy over the guilt that I had from it. So I think like guilt is, for me, it's still a really, really hard thing to deal with. But I think it's only natural when you're like here and you're doing better. And you have to realize that, like, yeah, there are some people that you just can't help. And it's also not your job to save everybody. You know, you can't save everybody if you can't take care of yourself. You know, if there is no water in the well, you can't pass out water. So yeah, that's my little spiel about guilt, but I really want to make sure that Brandon can say
Yeah,
as well.
we're gonna get Brandon, but I want to pitch you something real quick. After this 3-part series, we're gonna have another series with fellas called Conquering Mommy Issues. So guess what we're gonna have after that with the ladies? So just throwing it out there. If you want to be a part of that.
I am there all day to talk about my mommy and
Look,
daddy.
we are ready. When I tell you we have conversations about mommy issues, like privately, me and Matina, we are on board with it.
Okay. Barry just made me think of something, and that was about the cultural differences, but I want to hear Brandon, and we'll see if we have time for that. Go ahead, B.
Yeah, don't worry. Mine will be long. So one thing I'll say is when you just listening to some of the comments and everybody, it made me think of one thing is a lot of times, and obviously I had to go through it myself, is when you hit a certain place, you end up with survivor's guilt. And a lot of us have survivor's guilt. We feel like we are the ones that made it and we shouldn't have made it. And so hence we feel bad and we try to give away what we have because we don't think we deserve it because we feel survivor's guilt. Because you're in the military. Why am I the one that made it? Right? You were a lot of people in the service that get it. Why did I survive and this person did? So you feel so guilty and wrong. You don't truly accept and appreciate what you have. It's almost like a punishment. And so you can never truly enjoy what you have. So then you spend the rest of your time feeling guilty. You're essentially trying to pay off that guilt by doing things for others. And that's a big part of, I think, of why people struggle. And there's also another part of us trying to rescue ourselves and others, which because we haven't healed our inner child. So we see people in a struggling position, we think of ourselves, we're triggered, we're trying to save ourselves, right? And so in order to do that, a few things you have to do is you have to forgive yourself for being successful, and you have to give yourself grace that you did make it and others didn't, because it's really not about them, it's you. So you have to say, I deserve this. You can't compare your life and your journey to someone else. You have to say, I actually deserve this. I'm not a bad person. I don't have to hide it. I don't have to feel bad for it. I don't do any of these things. Once you can conquer that, no is easy. Because you realize that other people have a journey, just like you did. And your journey created and was very important. We needed each step on that journey in order for us to be who we are. So who are we to rob people of their experience? So what instead of us trying to save them, we wish them well along their journey and we can give them the blueprint. But it's not for me to fix your financial situation. I'll give you some of the blueprint. You have to execute. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm getting a whole lot better at managing that guilt.
Can I just say, I did not expect to come here and have Brandon read me for absolute filth. Like, don't appreciate it getting called out. Didn't know that was going to happen tonight.
I mean,
Brandon will definitely give you a word.
I remember rock bottom for me. I remember, my friends.
Yeah, rock bottom for me made me amp it up. I was like, I bossed up after rock bottom. I was like, oh, okay. You're gonna be homeless now? Never again. It'll never happen again. And coming from there to where I'm at now, like absolutely not. Like I'm gonna fight my way to the top.
Yeah, my fellas had a little intervention for me. I remember that. Clearly, I thought I was going to watch a football game.
Ooh.
I thought I was
Wait,
going to
what
watch a
kind of
football game to
intervention was
celebrate.
it?
Bro, they brought me Rob. No,
I was there.
yeah, we went to the crib.
What?
And one of my mentors too,
Yeah,
right? One of the mentors. He's doing really, really well.
yeah,
Used to ride us around in his plane and stuff.
yeah.
And I'm thinking that we're going to a little get together with the fellas. And all of a sudden, the fellas was like, "So, Ty, what's up with you, bro?"
Yeah.
And
Step
I'm
it
like,
up, dog. You slacking.
I'm like looking around, like, "What you talking about? I'm good." They're like, "Nah,
Yeah,
you're not good. What's going on? You know, we only doing this because we care about you." And
yeah,
I was like, "Oh man."
Yeah.
yeah,
So I really had to, had to get it together. Had to
yeah.
get it together.
Woo.
But
Almost
that's
got emotional.
definitely one of the biggest differences, right? In terms of when someone wants to see you successful more or just as much as you want it for yourself, right? I mean, we definitely did not, we definitely didn't do it in order to make Ty feel bad, but we just had to make sure that he understood that he had the support system there to keep him accountable just as much as we would expect him to do the same for us.
Okay. I might have to wait for this cultural differences question until part 2, but I want to ask y'all, as we close out, one final question. The question is, do y'all have any regrets? And how are you currently managing being the flag bearer?
I have a couple of regrets because I tend, again, the situation with my younger brother. He's been in and out of jail, on drugs, off drugs, things of that nature. Like, I tend to believe in people more than they believe in themselves, and it's kind of naive of me when I see the signs, when I see they're showing me who they are, and I just choose not to believe it. And not to say that's who they're always going to be, but I regret giving so many chances, because now I'm in a situation where, it's expected for me to give chance after chance after chance, instead of them actually growing and changing and learning.
So
I
I'll
think she might
go.
have froze. Go ahead. Okay,
Sorry.
go ahead, McKinley.
I was gonna say uh, that I think, especially after everything that Brandon said, probably biggest regret in how I've been the flag bearer has been focusing more on saving versus leading, and just being that role model, and again, just sharing the blueprint versus feeling the need to hop in and always save and always be the one to manage everything. I think if I had spent more time um, just leading and kind of just being there to support people in their journey, I'd be way less stressed out than I currently am. But it's something I'm learning now. I'm learning how to take a step back and let people fail on their own, but also succeed on their own without me doing everything for them. So, and I think it also is improving my relationships with my family, because I'm doing that, because I'm taking that step back and I'm showing them that they are capable. They don't need me to save them, but I'm certainly here if they ever need anything. So,
Brandon or Rob? Such
I'll be,
gentlemen.
I'll be quick. I don't have a single regret. I kind of have one. Like, um, everything I've done has helped me grow and develop into the person I am. and how I carry myself currently and in the past, I don't have any regrets because I needed every lesson. Um, and I how I handle it now is amazing, right? But I wouldn't have got there had I not gone through any of those things. I wouldn't be able to help other people or have the wisdom to share with others, right? Like, so I don't have any.
Yeah, and much like Brandon, I don't have any regrets either, and but I can't say that I never had any regrets, because there were times when I wanted my friends and my family to come along on this journey with me, but and Ty had touched on he had touched on the point of his mentor. It's also one of my close friends and mentors as well. And we have had I've known him for about 20 years as well. And we've had some really, really key conversations on all the topics that we just discussed tonight, especially about survivor's guilt, especially about what it really means to take on this new responsibility, being a primary provider, being able to lead from the front without feeling guilt, as well as turning that opportunity into a certain type of empowerment that is meant to educate, but also put people in a position that they may not have seen for themselves. So I can honestly say that I don't have any guilt, because my track record has proven that I am much more willing to help someone who's willing to help themselves. But at the same time, if you don't take advantage of the opportunities that are constantly being presented, I can't blame myself because you don't want to come along. So that's pretty much the answer for me.
Yeah, I have been thinking about my answer since you all were answering, and if I'm gonna speak honestly, I would say my regrets are minimal, and it's getting less and less almost every day. You know, I remember rock bottom, like I mentioned earlier. I remember pushing myself. I remember almost all 100 plus presentations I've had to give and the things that I had to do to get to where I am. I feel like, my sense of accomplishment now kind of outweighs a lot of those things. Like Brandon said, had those things not happened, I wouldn't be where I am. I feel like my maturity has allowed me to kind of guide them in a way which kind of makes me feel like Mr. Miyagi a little bit, to where like I'm helping them, I'm guiding them, I'm showing them a good path, but kind of giving them the answers, but still letting them work for it. Um, there are some family members and some situations that I, kind of saw happening, and for some reason or another, I just backed away from it, and it didn't turn out well. So when I say minimal, maybe some situations like that, young pregnancies, younger cousins getting in trouble, and things like that. But I'm getting better at it. Like I let my nephew struggle because he need to learn. Of course I'm not gonna let him drown. You know, but I'm gonna let him tread water a little bit. You either gonna swim or not. Because I remember being there sometimes. Up to the point where they're at rock bottom, and then they say to themselves, just like I did, yo, this is rock bottom. I remember taking pictures in the video, and I said to myself, okay, what are you going to do about it? And I feel like sometimes a person needs to get to that point. Um, Next week, though, like I do want to talk about cultural differences because, I've had some family members that just won't accept the things that I would offer them. They'd be like, I want my own, you know? And there's, we know there are some cultures that will bunk up, 10, 20 in the house, save money. And for some reason, it feels like we can't do that. I don't know. They say pride is the devil and whatnot, and I see it a lot. But it's a little bit after 8. I want to thank y'all for joining. If you can go around one more good time, tell the people who you are and where they can find you, we'll sign off. Go ahead, Rob.
Oh man, thanks for having me, Ty. I've pretty much eliminated all of my social media except for LinkedIn. So because right now I'm at a point in my life where if I can't get money with you or we can't figure out a way to create shared success, I'm not really trying to spend too much time on other platforms. So if you want to reach out to me, John Robinson, I'm on LinkedIn, Global Chief Information Security Officer. Happy to accept any invitations to connect, and happy to share any insights that I have as well.
I love it. I love the humility in the CISO, just
I guess I'll go next. I'll pop in. Sorry, Ty. Be cutting you off. I'm very same as John. I'm not really on too much social media anymore. You can find me on LinkedIn. Every now and then I pop on Twitter. Sorry, X at CyberKenna. But yeah, I'm always happy to connect with others. So feel free to shoot me a LinkedIn connection. And if you find me around, I'm in a couple of these like Discords and nonprofit groups, so you'll find me. You'll find me if you're looking for me.
I'm gonna be quick and I'm a drop. So I'm Kalila Scott, and you can find me at Key Twice, which is KI_TWYCE on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Because I'm not going for that X. You gonna be Twitter. Your mama named you Twitter. I'm gonna call you Twitter. So that's where we going with that. But so you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Kalila Scott. Feel free to connect. It's good to be here, everybody.
All right, I guess last but not least, I ain't gonna lie. Once he's finished talking, I ain't gonna say nothing. That's why we was on quiet. Like, God, dog, how are you supposed to follow that up? Like, can't follow that up. So lighten the mood a little bit. John was so good. God, dog. Hey, we just gonna go with John. But Brandon Robinson, also a fellow Robinson. So always a pleasure to meet one. So words won't form on IG. You can find me in there, or just beat around on Twitter. When she said X, I thought she was talking about like one of her exes. So she said, "Sorry, X." I'm like, "Oh, we apologize. I'm sorry, X is on." But yeah, I forget it was even Swisher's name. But yeah, that and Twitter. But also want to say thank you not only to Ty but to the panel for a great conversation. It's always good to see different perspectives, be enlightened and learn. So appreciate it.
For sure. John won't say it, but I'll say it. My man, John W. Robinson, was nominated by his company, Northrop Grumman, for a career achievement for the Black Engineer of the Year Awards. So when y'all go to the next Bay, definitely be on the lookout for J. Rob. I'm going to be there. I wouldn't miss it. So big ups to John, my daughter's godfather. Great guy. You all should get to know him. Definitely make that LinkedIn connection.
Appreciate you, Doc.
For sure. The meetup group. So we made me think about the regrets, and I had mentioned the 100 plus presentations. It's because yesterday, in 10 plus years of having a cybersecurity meetup group, we reached 10,000 members yesterday. So it was an emotional moment. I had a lot of anxiety. I never would have guessed we would get to that point back in January of 2012. When we first started, only 6 people showed up to my first meetup. It took me 9 months to have 100 people in the group. And then we started getting 120, 150 every month. Finally at 10,000. So, you know, any dealings with the meetup group now, it's like, F you, pay me. And if y'all are going to be in DC in a couple of weeks, we're going to celebrate after the B-Sides and Over conference. So we'll have a booth there. But I want to thank you all for joining. Part 2, we'll get into some of the topics that we weren't able to get into tonight. Thank you all again, panelists. Thank you all in the chat and for joining. Hopefully this will be able to help someone else in the future. I'm going to take a break for about 10 minutes, and then I'll be on Sabrina Soul's panel talking about the show. All right. So you can see me there again if you'd like. If not, catch y'all next week for part 2. And you all have a good night.
Thanks, Ty. Great to meet everybody.